the stuff, and then
Do you want to play it and listen to it?
yeah, let me
Confirm
see.
it's
Let me
what's
see.
talking.
Yeah, I think.
There you go. I hope it's working.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check.
Check Kenya, check Ethiopia.
Oh man,
Check Marathon,
I
check.
love that. I
Yeah,
love it.
Thank you.
This cut. Okay, thank you, friends. This is Fakadu from User and Education Support Service Ethiopia. Yes, Ethiopia. Today I am here with my friend from Kenya, and he is very passionate about Africa. He's very passionate about farmers and about young people, about making things better for our African brothers and sisters. His name is Kelvin, and we met here at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. And as you know, far from home, we have this emotional, time where whenever you see an African around, your heart starts pumping a little bit more blood. And when it's a Kenyan, you might feel like, oh, should we do some marathon?
Thank you, man.
Or coffee? Yeah, so my brother, I really thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll go directly to the discussion. This is a podcast, a storytelling that is aimed on Ethiopian, African, and global use, those who might come from like our context, those who are looking for ideas and inspirations. So we'll try to share with them our journey from home until today.
Okay.
So what is our childhood? What does that look like? Also, life in university and also your way to Nebraska. And yeah, I'll ask you one by one. Let's start from who is Kelvin?
Who is Kelvin?
Yep.
How deep do you wanna go into?
Let's make it like coffee time discussion.
Okay.
So you are free to say like as long as you like. I don't interrupt you.
Yeah.
And so this is your story. This is a story of Kenya. This is a story of Africa. And go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting question. And I'm a Kenyan
Mm-hmm.
by birth, born and raised in Laikipia County.
Yeah.
So that is in Nyahururu. So that is like it's about 300 kilometers away from Nairobi.
Uh-huh.
Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya.
Yeah, Nairobi.
Some people like joking that Nairobi is the capital city of Africa.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Yeah, I've been there. It's true. Nairobi have a lot of big things. That's true.
It's
Yeah.
an interesting capital city,
Uh-huh.
the only capital city in the world with a national park. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And I have lived in the city for quite some time because we had this dream to come out of the village,
Mhm.
go to good schools and
Yeah.
good facilities in the city. So I found myself, of course, I grew up in a village, went to school in a village. I had the opportunity of going to a good boarding school at some point, that is from class 5 or something. So we have a different education system back in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe class 5 would be like grade 5 or something like that. So I went to a boarding school. I was there for like 4 years until I did my first national exam.
Mhm.
That qualified me to go to high school, where I was for another 4 years. So the high school that I went to was in a place called Nyeri.
Mhm.
That is about 200 kilometers or 150 kilometers from Nairobi, and it's somewhere in the where it's actually in Mount Kenya. So from my school, you could see Mount Kenya
Wow.
because that is like the second tallest mountain in Africa after Mount Kilimanjaro, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was there for 4 years for my high school, which was fantastic. And after that, now I did my second national exam that qualified me to go to the university.
Mhm.
So for the university, I went to the Technical University of Kenya. Formerly, they used to call it Kenya Polytechnic.
Mhm.
It was like a satellite campus of the University of Nairobi, but then it was given its own charter and became the Technical University of Kenya. So I was there for 4 years, and specifically, I went there to do a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, which I did for 4 years, and I was able to graduate after 4 years with what they call a second class upper. That is like around an average of between 3.5 to 3.8 GPA. The interesting thing is when I was going to the university, actually, growing up in a farm,
Yeah.
I had a lot of interest in agriculture, but beyond agriculture, I was so much interested in mechanics or machines.
Oh,
Because
machinery.
we
Nice.
used to have some farm machines, and we'd repair them on the farm. We'd bring mechanics at home, and I had so much interest. Like for example, I I mean, I started driving when I was very young. I could drive, I think, even before, I think let's say around 12 years, 13 years, I was already driving. But I was driving without any license because it's around the farm,
Yeah.
and drive tractors or something like that. So when I was going to the university, I was actually trying to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering. So anybody would ask me, what is your interest? I wanted to do mechanical engineering. But all that was inspired by the fact that I grew up in a farm and I grew up in an agriculture setup. So back home we farm maize and wheat, and then people try some horticulture stuff. So you can find people farming mainly not onions. They do tomatoes. So you do tomatoes. They also do some, let's say, cabbages or those kind of things. Just for some of them is actually like tomatoes. That's for commercial production. For maize and wheat, that is also for commercial production. But if you know very well in Kenya, I mean, the staple food is made is what we call ugali.
Ugali, yeah. I had the chance to eat ugali when I was in Kenya.
Yeah. So with ugali, so that's why maize for us, maize is a big thing.
Yeah.
We have different delicacies that we make out of maize.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came to the US, they call it corn, which is
corn. Yeah.
I love calling it maize, but of course, when you go to the Romans, you have to do like the Romans do. So when I came here and I had to transition, start calling it corn, but in real sense, it's still maize.
Maize, yeah.
So growing in that setup, went to the university. I'm here interested to do mechanics, but the grade that I got. So we have this institution that is called. It's the institution that is mandated to appoint people, or just depending on the grade that you got, they give you the opportunity to go to the university. So it's a fully funded opportunity by the government. So they will kind of have a criteria based on your grades. So I had an A minus, which was good to qualify me to a mechanical engineering degree. But for some reason, because they follow depending on how many options you had applied, they skipped my two options, which one of it was a mechanical engineering degree, the other in one university, Nairobi University, the other one was in Chuk University. The third one was a geospatial engineering degree. That's what I was targeting. The other one was a chemical engineering degree.
Wow.
And then the fourth one was bachelor's degree in biochemistry. So for some reason, they skipped all of them. They gave me bachelor's degree in biochemistry.
I understand that coming from university. I know how we assign students to different majors. Yeah.
So I get to the university. I'm like, okay, I can change these and go back to mechanical engineering. Try to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering. But then something tells me, okay, it's almost the same thing because your interest is in agriculture, plants, and plant health. So if you do something in biochemistry, it's more it's biology, and which is something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And science is still part of science. And I was like, okay, let me just go with it. And then I had this thing in my mind: when something is made up for me, and I kind of believe that, okay, this is my direction, my destiny, chosen direction. So I don't want to mess around with it so much. So I was like, okay, let me just pursue this.
Biochemistry.
And that's why I went for biochemistry. After that, I mean, that is me growing up. That is me going into the university.
It's very fancy. It's very.
Eventually, after that, the
next biochem is not.
Yeah,
it's need to be.
But it was fun. I mean,
smart.
It was good. We had a very good.
Amazing.
We graduated 21. We had our class had 21 students.
Okay.
We graduated, I think, 19 of us, and we had a good team. We had a good time on campus. I had the time to also try other different things on campus, and which was fun for me, and also being in campus, you realize. For us, the way education system is, going to a boarding school up to your second national exam, which is at high school, all that time is like a closed system. So you're in a boarding school, you have teachers, taking care of you. You have to. There are some rules. You don't have that independence. You have to wake up maybe at 4. You have to be in class for preps and prep time. You have to do continuous exams. Some of them are quite difficult, but we managed to do all that. But when you get to the university, it's kind of now the real life. So here you have the opportunity to be more independent, to make your own decisions. Some people, they end up even not completing university because now there's so much to explore.
Yeah, they get distracted by
you can easily get
all the fancy things.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, for me, it was nice the fact that I got the opportunity to be in the city, interact with so many people, be able to see how people make money and how people make a living in the city, see first-hand challenges that people are going through in the city, and now I could compare that with the environment that I grew up.
Where you come from,
back home, But eventually, I was able to graduate with my bachelor's degree in biochemistry, and then after that, I immediately went to work. So before I graduated, I happened to go for an attachment, which is a requirement before you graduate in any degree. So I happened to go for an attachment in the National Plant Protection Organization, that is Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service.
Oh.
So that is the regulator of Kenya. So they have a couple of mandates, which maybe I can talk about later. But I happened to go for an attachment with them. And when I was there, for some reason, they liked how I do my job. And on top of liking how I do my job, when I was in the university, I had shown a lot of interest in graphic designing, in photography, in videography. I got somebody to train me those skills. And when I went to that institution, one of the things I did, they realized I have some skills in graphic design. And one of the departments, they were like, okay, we need someone to design something for us, for accommodations or something. And now that you have these skills, we can give you an internship to come back and intern with us for at least 1 year. And you could do that as you do your interest in biochemistry.
Cool.
So that is what gave me the opportunity.
So that was an internship, like attachment, yeah?
So no, the first one was an attachment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The attachment opened, that was before I graduated.
I see. Oh, before you finish.
Okay. So I went for attachment from August to October. And then, so I went to graduate in December.
Oh,
and by the time I was graduating, I had an opportunity to come back now and get an internship. So I started my internship in 2019.
Wow.
That is 2019 in January. So they would give you an internship of 6 months, and then they extend it to 1 year depending on how good you are based on performance. So it was good. And what is interesting, which is something maybe you can dive in later. Since I joined KEFIS, that was in 2019 January, I left there in 2024 May, coming straight to the US. So it was amazing. That's 5 years. So it was like, those one of the things that you land on something that gets you through and through.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but for me it was worth it. It was a very critical part of my life, and I mean I always see that KEFIS was meant to be there to take care of me at a very critical part of my life, because I learned a lot of skills, interacted with so many people, opened me to the real working environment. In that environment, the real application of agriculture, because now it's a regulator, so they do a lot of collaborations with different institutions, global institutions, non-governmental institutions, government institutions, research institutes. So it was a very good space for me to work in before I came back to the university to continue my education. So that is me.
Wow, very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, say it again. So we need to acknowledge this KFC. Is it
Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate.
Plant Health Inspector Service.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We need to thank them, because this early start, getting that motivation, getting that training, and then I know the transition sometimes is a challenge for a lot of people, especially in Ethiopia, for the young people. So those organizations that open their doors to a young graduate and then inspire them to go further, I think that they need appreciation. So
Sure.
I'm grateful about that. And then tell me how that education and then work experience brought you to US. Like, what was the aspiration, and how did you start thinking about Nebraska? So thinking about US, why specifically Nebraska?
Okay.
And then how is your passion going now?
Okay.
Later I'll ask you about your plans after you finish. So
okay, that's good. I've already mentioned how I went into KEFIS, and I would not say so much about any other institution that I worked for, but I would say so much about two things that I've done so far in my life. One of them is self-employment.
Wow.
So that is having my own business. It's a
Nice.
photography and videography company that is doing, right now, that is moving into what we'd call becoming an advertisement agency.
Wow.
Because we have the skills, we have the people to do that. We also have the networks to get business. So that really built me. Okay. The other thing that I did that really built me is where now KEFIS comes in. Okay. And of course, all these things I was able to mold that when I was in the university. So however much I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in biochemistry, I think we normally have enough at undergrad. We have a lot of time to explore as much as you can, if you're willing to. So if you have some hidden passion, some hidden interest, if you have some hidden talents, it's always a good time to try and look into that.
Yeah.
So I got myself in that space, and I got that's when I got somebody to train me on this videography and photography. I And interesting enough, it's a passion that I had, but I didn't exactly know where to start. You know? But I find someone who is like, okay, I'm training people. They were charging like I think they were charging like 100 and let's say around $200 to train.
Okay.
And they will train you for like 6 months
No,
or something like that. So it was a good one. But so I went. The guy gives me an appointment. I take his business card. We meet up. He asks a couple of questions, and then he's like, "Okay, I think you're good. I can teach you. But what I want to do, I will not charge you.
Oh.
So I'm going to train you.
Wow.
And then after the training, you're going to work for me."
That's cool. Wow.
Okay. So that's how I got my
That's
first.
smart.
I was like, okay. I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah.
So after that, I worked with him so his production name was Power Media Production. He's a nice guy, a fantastic guy. So I got to work with him for a couple of years, and that time I was also working in the university. So the good thing with photography and especially freelance photography, most of the events that we used to do, most of the activities we used to do were over the weekend. So I would have my normal tuition time and my school time up to Friday. And then over the weekend, that's when we'd have those events going to cover and produce stuff. And then we have to do some graphics. We have to work. Those are things you can do, the soft stuff. So you can do it on the computer and everything. So that kind of built me to becoming something that I didn't know how big it could be. Something that I still do up to date, you know. And then that also gave me a good opportunity to kind of create my way into the institution that I was also working in, that is KFIS. So moving into KFIS, after being given the first internship, so my work environment, with the background in biochemistry, it's a plant health institution. So one of the there are a couple of things that they do, being the regulator. So one of the main things they do is they have an accredited laboratory that does what do you call this? That does diagnostics. So it's a diagnostics facility. So ideally, what they do is, they have to give some certificates, especially for maybe imports, for exports.
Yeah.
They have a seed certification system, and that seed certification system, we have to do some tests to these seeds.
Yeah.
For us before we give that seed certificate to seed companies. Okay. So they have that mandate. Then they also have a mandate around making sure that anybody who is doing breeding, especially when it comes to new breeders and everything, their rights are protected. So you have to be given a certain certificate. You have to apply for it. They have to make sure that if you have a product in the market, it's protected.
Like a patent.
Yeah, it's a patent, kind of a patent. They call them breeder rights. So that is all that is done under seed certification. Actually, they call it the seed department. Department. So it's seeds and variety protection, something like that. So then the other department that they have is what they call it's called the phytosanitary department. So that has to do with everything to deal with plants and plant products. So in terms of diseases and in terms of managing anything to do with plant products. So if you're exporting a plant product, if you're importing a plant product, they would need to certify you for that. They would also need to check the current status of some of the the pathogens that we have in the country. So if we have an issue with some pathogens, they're going to collaborate with some of the research institutions to make sure that they take care of the farmers. So they also have to do a lot of sensitization. They have to train farmers. They even have a department under what they call pest risk analysis.
Oh, cool.
And with pest risk analysis, simply what they do is just to try and see, this pest, for example, has been reported in Uganda. This pest has also maybe been reported in Tanzania. What is the likelihood that it's going to come into our country?
Wow.
And what can we do to make sure it doesn't come?
That's
and if
cool.
it happens to come, because we do a lot of trade, so it's different.
Yeah, there's a
we do a
possibility.
lot of trade. So most likely, even though it takes some time, it's going to end up in the country. So sometimes they have to simulate what they are going to do in terms of how are they going to respond once the pathogen comes into the country. So that is all around the mandate of KFIS. But remember, one of the critical infrastructure that has to oversight that is a good accredited laboratory, a good accredited facility that can test and certify, or for example, and test, diagnose, and be able to say that we have this pathogen or we don't have it. Okay, so they have to be able to do that. So working in that environment, working under the mentorship of a very good team, and working in the hands of people who are really willing to inspire you, and they want to see you do good. Of course, it has its own challenges, especially, for example, sometimes when you work for a certain environment, some people they have high expectations and maybe
Oh,
they
yeah.
can meet. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of competition sometimes, which is not very good for such an environment. But all in all, I think one of the most interesting thing for me was working with people who are willing to mentor you and train you to becoming a research scientist. And what they would do is, they would give you the freedom to experiment, the freedom to participate, the freedom to be a team player, especially if they can tell you can do it. So there's not so much, interference with the work that you do. And then the other thing that Kefis opened up to me, now that they would do a lot of collaboration with non-government organizations. So what they did is, I happened to work for an institution called CABI, that is the Center of Agriculture and Bioscience International.
Oh.
And the reason why I was able to work for CABI is because during COVID,
yeah, when
most institutions, most
so
institutions
crazy,
went
yeah.
down. Yeah, it was crisis everywhere.
Yeah.
So during COVID, we had just started a project with CABI, and this project, it was dubbed. The name was Potato Disease Surveillance in Kenya. And so what happened is that the project was just started. It's supposed to happen for like 3 months or something, and then COVID comes in, and now we have to cut down the number of people who are working.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's a whole roller coaster. There's a lot of bad things happening. There's a lot of people are getting laid off, no jobs, companies are closing. But that is the time that I worked for CABI. I got the opportunity to work for them, I think, for the next 1 year and something.
Oh, cool.
And it was a very critical time.
Are you still employed by KFC or you're?
No, I'm not employed by KFC.
So that you changed.
Yeah, no. So initially I was still under KFC. But CABI came in and now took over everything because now
Nice.
the programs that we were doing with KFC is kind of hard to stop.
I see.
Because they needed to reduce the number just to take care of COVID. Now it's an issue of COVID, and they need to cut down the number of people working in the lab and that kind of thing. But during that time is when now CABI was there, and I was doing some critical. Actually, what I was doing is most of my work was around molecular analysis and some of those potato pathogens, and that was work in progress. So there's no way you could leave all that going on. Go home. So it was a trying time, but it was also a very good time for me to get trained on how to, when we send a CV and we do interviews, and you say you can work under pressure.
Yeah.
You can work overtime.
Overtime, under pressure, under deadline.
Yeah. And then we have these jokes. You see a joke, you see these memes going around.
Yeah.
So Kevin saying he can work under pressure and he slapped the boss. So that was a very trying time. Because it's COVID, you don't know whether you're going to get COVID. You don't know how to go, man. And no, the bad thing with such things, because it was affecting everybody. It was a global problem.
Yeah.
And so you don't know how things are going to be. You don't know whether the world is going to heal from COVID anymore. But the good thing of all that is that I was able to do two things again. I was able to work under CABI, and I was also able to diversify in my business. Because now what happened is that with COVID coming, remember, we used to rely on events.
Yeah.
But COVID, there are no events.
Everything is in lockdown. Yeah.
So no more weddings.
Yeah.
No more public gatherings. How do you
survive?
continue with your,
How do you make
photography?
money? Yeah.
How do you make money? Not possible. So what do you do? So I got a studio. So we started a photo studio that also served as our office. It also served as our editing and filming office. And we would also do. I was able to diversify to that direction. Before that, I used to do a lot of freelance. But when COVID came, I diversified into having a studio. So it's a studio where people come in, they take photos. Those photos are edited. If somebody wants to shoot something from there, they can do that. And that was also another space that I had never thought about until COVID came.
Yeah.
So it came with that blessing too.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Then fast forward. What I didn't mention about Kefis is that they also do. We have issues to do with GMO.
Oh yeah, GMO.
Back in Africa, but in Kenya, I know we used to have a regulation, like what do you call it? It's like a law that bans
GMO. Okay.
So if GMO is banned in Kenya or GM crops, so that would mean that they have to be regulated. Okay. So and anything that is regulated, any regulated article, KEFI's members have to be there to if it's being transported, if it's being. So most of it, what would come into the country was was under research.
Verified. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's under research. It has to be verified. It has to be. We have to keep checking some of the products in the market, whether they have GM.
We think.
You
Yeah.
know, whether
Wow.
they are conventional products or they have GM.
Mhm.
So we'll do all this kind of surveillance sometimes. Go collect products from the market, bring them to the lab, and go ahead and try to look whether they are they're genetically modified. We had protocols for that.
That's amazing.
So that was also something that was so
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's
And,
very
and I can
high
tell you
level.
that the institution that I used to work for, they had, in terms of facilities, they were properly equipped.
Mhm.
And what was interesting is that a couple of those equipments and facilities we used to have, they were funded by USAID,
Mhm.
others were funded by European Union.
I see.
So I could say that there was really impact when you think about USAID.
Yeah.
And also that also gave me the opportunity to see. Of course, we used to live knowing that there's the Great America, there's
Yeah.
the Big
Yeah.
American dream. But even working with USAID sponsored equipment, that you think it's written there, USAID
Yeah,
for the American
they label
people.
on it. Yeah. I
From
know.
the American
Yeah.
people, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That says okay, there's an American sponsor
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we always knew that at some point. And also my boss that I worked under in Kabi, I knew he used to travel a lot
I see.
because he did his PhD in I think in South Africa.
Mhm.
I think one of his programs he also did in Europe. So he would inspire, he would open you to a world where you feel that the world is not just about Kenya.
Yeah, that's only Kenya. Yeah.
You don't want to be a village champion.
Uh-huh.
So the world is not just about Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It's not about just Tanzania,
Yeah.
Uganda. There's more to see in the
There's a
world.
lot of things. Yeah.
So I kept feeling yes, for sure I need to explore further. So what was interesting is that the work that we did with Kabi also gave me and three of my colleagues an opportunity to join the University of Nairobi to pursue a master's degree.
Wow.
It was supposed to be a fully paid opportunity by
Uh-huh.
that institution. But now there are also issues. Well, we had started, we were attending classes, we studying everything, we were also doing some of our projects, but we had issues to do with tuition because still the same issues to do with funding and COVID, and we still had issues to do with funding and COVID, and so it wasn't really a good time for us to go to school at that time because whatever we were depending, the kind of the money that we were depending on to kind of fund our education, it wasn't seemingly coming through. And we could understand because it was trying time. Most countries took money back to their countries to try and take care of the situation in their countries. And so, fast forward, I was not really able to proceed with that program. But I had done, a good number of the courses and some exams here and there. And then fast forward 2024 when I came here, actually 2023. So I sent an application to the University of Nebraska.
How did you pick Nebraska? Why not Iowa? Why not California? Why not Oklahoma State?
I wanted to become a Cornhusker.
Cornhusker, be great.
So when you were growing up, you used to.
So
did you know about Nebraska?
Did someone introduce you to Nebraska?
Yeah, someone introduced me
cool.
to Nebraska.
Who is
I don't
this
want to
person?
mention them.
Yeah, please, we need to acknowledge them.
I don't want to mention them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so this person he was a visiting scientist for some time in Kenya.
Oh, cool.
So he's interested in working with viruses.
Oh.
And so he came to, because of MLM, that is maize lethal necrosis, that is caused by two viruses. It's actually maize chlorotic motovirus and some other potiviruses. So Kenya, because the first incidences of MLM were reported in Kenya back in 2011.
I see.
So since then, there have been a lot of research on it. And actually, one of the institutions that is called Kenya Agriculture, Livestock and Research Organization, they have a whole research facility that is under it's kind of facilitated by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh, okay.
But also it is under the control of CIMIT.
CIMIT, yeah.
Yeah. So that is in a place called Naivasha. So I've seen most research scientists all over the world who are interested in working with viruses. We do come to Kenya and go to Naivasha to try and see, what has been done, because there's a lot of success stories around there because they did a lot of breeding. Also, Monsanto was also involved in those breeding programs, and eventually they came up with some tolerant varieties. That is what now farmers grow. So we do have hybrids that are.
Is it maize or sorghum?
It's maize.
Maize,
That
okay.
is maize
Yeah.
lethal necrosis. It's called. They used to call it maize necrosis disease,
I
but
see.
they no longer call it disease. Just
Yeah,
call it
okay.
MLM. So he came also because he was interested in a similar program.
Mhm.
That's how we met. He happened to come to the institution where I work.
And he's a Nebraskan.
Yeah, he's a
He
Nebraska.
studied here. Nice.
Yeah,
That's
so,
cool.
So we met and we had a very good conversation. I took him around the cafes.
Yeah.
I took him. I showed him some of the facilities we had. I explained to him about what I do, what we
Mhm.
do, and he was amazed by everything. And he told me,
Beautiful.
"I think you guys are doing a good thing." And I mean, he told me about the university.
Mhm.
He told me, they would be opening their opportunities by this around this time.
Yeah.
If you're interested, you can send out your application.
Woohoo.
And I was like, okay, why not?
Nice.
And interestingly, that time,
Yeah.
I was getting an opportunity to go and work for my country's national intelligence service. Okay,
Man.
so I was torn in between those two.
Woo.
Think about that. I was torn in between those two.
Man.
So here is like an 80% cooked opportunity for you to go and work for NIS, they call it the National Intelligence Service.
Yeah.
And then here's an opportunity to go back to the university and pursue your master's degree in plant pathology, phytopathology.
Wow.
And you have to choose between the two.
Two very mouth-watering chances.
Yeah, man. And then I don't know, for some reason I've always wanted to be in the military also. I don't know, for some reason I would,
Wow.
I mean, I always feel like, okay, I have this energy that can do something also within the military
People in
space.
safety and
Yeah,
security.
so
For sure, we need people who make us safe and secure. And
yeah, I've
yeah,
always been.
that's cool.
Okay, I think it's also because I have uncles, who were in the military.
Oh yeah, okay.
I had a couple of friends also. I have one of my best friends. He's a major back in
Oh,
Kenya.
man.
His name is Dr. Olo. I can
I
mention
love that.
Yeah, so he's a major and he's a good friend of mine, and we talk a lot. So these are some of the guys who are in my environment, and they would inspire me also to going into the military.
Wow.
But especially when you're still young, you're still trying to figure out
Yeah.
what is really gonna work for you. So that's why I'm doing a business. I'm back in school. I have these other opportunities, but after getting those two opportunities, I was like, it's very important for me to go back to school. And just to mention, my friend who is in the military, he also went back to school to pursue. He's pursuing his special. He's a doctor by profession actually, so he's pursuing like a. Okay, their program is slightly different because already you're a doctor. So when you go back to school, it's like you're specializing. So he's specializing in something that they call ENT surgeon.
Is it ear, nose, and throat?
Yeah. So anything
ear,
from
nose,
the
and
neck
throat.
up,
Yeah.
they call it ENT surgeon.
Yeah, ENT. Yeah.
Yeah, so he
I
went
think
back
I
to
hear about
school
that.
to pursue his ENT.
After military.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's a military.
Still
he's
in the
a major,
military
and he's
to
going
serve
back
as
to
a
school.
yeah.
So I was challenged, man. If this guy can go back to school, why
Why not?
not me also go back to school?
Interesting. Yeah.
And now that I have somebody even who is willing to kind of guide me into how can I go about it, why not? And I was like, let me apply. I applied, got an interview. It was a good interview.
So directly Nebraska. You didn't apply to any other.
No, man.
Yeah,
I already had an opportunity to
that's
go and
amazing.
work for. I almost had an opportunity to go and work for NIS, But now, once I got this opportunity, I interviewed for it. It was an interesting panel for sure. They asked a couple of interesting questions. I tried my best. After the interview, I was disappointed because I felt like I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Did they ask difficult questions?
Yeah, it wasn't easy, It wasn't easy.
Tell me a little bit, because a lot of young people are going to watch this discussion, especially the path to the US. In general, what it takes to apply for a grad school internationally, and what kind of key questions people ask, especially biochemistry or plant pathology areas you study are not common to me or. Tell us a little bit about.
Let me mention something here. I have only done 2 interviews my entire life. So the first interview, I was interviewing for a job at the International Potato Center. So they were
SIP.
SIP. SIP.
Yeah, I know
I was
that.
interviewing for a job there to go and work on one of their programs, which is a good program that is still going on right now. It's mainly
orange flesh, sweet
potato.
No,
potato, sweet potato actually.
Yeah.
So they have biotech.
Oh, biotech, yeah. They have breeding.
They're doing some breeding, genetically modified.
Yeah, I know they do.
They're doing that. So I was interviewing for that as a research assistant, which was good also for me.
Amazing.
So to be honest with you, I think for me, interviews, I have done those two interviews. I was so prepared for the first interview. I did not get that job for some reason, okay?
Mhm.
But I was so prepared for that interview. The second job, I was prepared for it.
Mhm.
Not even the job, the second opportunity now to come to Nebraska,
Mhm.
I was prepared for it. But for some reason, I used to feel it's too big for me. I would feel like it's you know that kind of opportunity that
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
walking
yeah.
into and you're like,
Yeah,
I think this is on another level.
it's a lot.
You
You
know,
feel like
it's a
that.
lot. So and that kind of instead of making you ready,
Yeah.
oh, actually I've done 3 interviews. Well, I also did one interview back in the institution where I used to
Uh-huh.
work. But those are 2 interviews that are very important for me. So the second interview for coming to Nebraska, I was prepared, but not. I felt it is beyond me. You know?
Mhm.
So you're in the process of preparation. You're trying to do everything. You've done your best. You're like whatever the outcome comes, and that's what I'm telling you. Immediately after the interview, I was disappointed because I felt like I didn't do my best. You know, the questions maybe were a little bit tougher.
Mhm.
There was a panel of like 5 people.
Wow.
The other interview was a panel of 3 people. The other one I did for KPS was a panel of like 4 or 5 people. But those are people who knew me. You know,
Yeah.
so it wasn't that difficult. But and who knew my track record.
Mhm.
But for the one that I did for Nebraska, and this is what I'm trying to drive at,
Mhm.
you cannot be really sure on how to
What they ask.
what not even you can be sure about the
Mhm.
questions and the answers they're going to kind of ask.
Yeah.
But one thing you cannot be sure about is your performance in an interview.
Mhm.
Okay. So when you leave an interview room, you'll be like, okay, I nailed that one.
I wish I said this. Yeah.
It's always like that. I wish I could have improved this,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that some of those interviews that really pin you down and you feel you're kind of disappointed, they're the ones that you win.
Mm-hmm.
Because the psychology behind it is that if these people are trying to pin you down and get you to crack, it's because they are interested in you.
Mm.
So they want to ask you all the questions they can ask you to know what kind of person are we dealing with? How much do you know? Did you just shine for the interview? Because that's the other thing that people do. Some people they don't know how to do the actual job, but they prepare so much
They
for the
just say,
interview
yeah.
that they look so good
Mhm.
on paper, but when you give them the job, they will not
Yeah.
do it. You know. So it was a good interview. It was about my background, what I did. It's about some of the projects that I've done.
Mhm.
Interesting projects that I can stand anywhere and say this
Mhm.
is work I've done using my own hands. It was also about how I think there was sometimes I confuse the embassy interview and
With
because
yeah.
those are two
Yeah, I
interviews
understand.
that you over prepare.
Yeah.
So, but this one was the university one was more about my program, some of the projects that I've done. They would ask questions around because you have to do a presentation about a project you did.
Yeah.
So once you do that presentation, they're going to ask some questions around it, just to get to know, okay, what was your participation? What did you do? What are some of the interesting discoveries you got? If you have published something from that, it's even more interesting.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, then sometimes you have to
ask
explain it
more,
further.
yeah.
You ask more questions. They also want to know how much of science do you know, because we are working in the science environment, and I was interviewing for a science position. So they would ask you questions like, what is the difference between applied and fundamental science, and you have now to try and relate those two systems. But it was I cannot tell you it was hard, neither can I say it was simple. It was just the right questions that you need to go and walk in an interview that you prepared for an answer.
How long is the interview?
So the first 5 minutes is introduction.
I see. Yeah.
The other 10 minutes to 15 minutes, it's you present
yeah.
and they ask questions. And then the other, let's say up to 45 minutes, the other remaining time is more Q&A, they want to know back and forth. And then the last, let's say 10 minutes is more of if you have any questions. And one thing I try to recommend to anybody, anytime you go for an interview, if somebody ever asks you whether you have a question, please ask a question. Don't say you don't have questions.
Don't just say go, yeah.
You cannot be interviewed for 45 minutes and you have nothing to say, So ask a question. There are so many follow-up questions you can check on YouTube, you can check on. Some of them is just reasoning based on what they asked you or the interest they had. Just find a follow-up question to ask for an interview. You never know how it's going to come out, the discussion it's going to lead to.
Yeah.
And that discussion could kind of confirm whether you're the right candidate. Okay? So you can just find an intriguing question to ask. It doesn't have to be overboard, but it's good to ask a question after an interview.
Don't keep it quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that, and then that is it. So within 1 hour, 45 minutes, you're done. and then they give you a decision after 1 week. So after 1 week, that's when I got the decision back. I got the offer letter, thanks to God.
Come to Nebraska.
And welcome to the US. But
So
I
it's
didn't know,
about a year and after you came here, right?
I didn't know,
Almost, yeah.
after getting my offer letter, I didn't know it was going to be even tough before I came here. Because remember,
I was about to ask
yeah.
your expectations
Uh-huh.
before leaving Kenya, and then after you came to Nebraska, how is it? The expectations and reality? Is it like, does it match? Did you find what you're looking for? That's the first thing.
Okay.
And also, what are your current ongoing projects? A little bit about your research, and also future plans.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the environment that I came into in the US is a good environment. I landed in a very good department. It has some of the best people I've interacted with, some of the best people who are, in terms of knowledge. I work under someone who is so good at what they do, and they are so passionate about what they do. So you have to be able to match up that passion. So it is a transition. It is something that you're moving from one system to another system. You're moving from, especially coming from a work environment, not coming from an undergrad. If you come from an undergrad, go directly into a program, you still have the school mentality, right?
Yeah.
But if you come from a work environment, move into a program, you have now it's like having an industry.
Yeah, the
mindset.
practical.
You're really practical.
You are very practical thinkers than only theory.
Yeah, so there's that transition. So I'm more, I needed to transition and make sure we are able to move on the same level, which has its own challenges. But I can tell you for sure, I am in a good department. It's all about empowering us. It's all about us getting taught and getting prepared to become real scientists, which is what I love. And there's so much that we do around the agriculture sector. We are so much interested in answering fundamental questions. There's an applied perspective of the project that I'm currently doing, which is also quite fun. The other thing that a university does, I think, for me, and it's been like that for me, for the 2 times that I've gone back to school, is that it gives you a platform to interact more with people who are like-minded, people who have equally good exposure. At Nebraska, it's even better because now you're looking at a big community of national and international students who have different perspectives about life, and that can only put you in a position where you have a bigger pool of people to learn from and also interact with and get to share ideas with. I think that is one of the best things I've come to really find interesting and find good being in Nebraska and being in that social setup where I have people from all walks of life, and that's what it's. I mean, I've just been around for 1 year. Actually, I'll be concluding my first year this end of this May.
Yeah.
Because I came. It's let's say 7 days before I complete my first year, because I came in May 27th. That's when I landed in Omaha.
Wow.
So 27th, today's 22nd.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Looking at like 5 days to go.
Exactly 1 year. Yeah.
To make it exactly 1 year. But that 1 year, it has had its own challenges. But I can tell you, it's been amazing for sure.
Let's make it like a little bit clear.
Yeah.
Tell me top 2 or 3 best things that you remember
about Nebraska.
Yeah, and then 3 challenges. What should upcoming students from Africa, from Kenya, wherever they come from, look forward to, which can be really a very good motivating factor? And 3 potential big challenges that they should be really ready about.
So let me start with some of the challenges. I think I talked about transition. That is a critical factor because it also takes you back to the time before you get your visa. Remember, you have to get a visa, so you have to go for a visa interview.
Yeah,
you have to prepare for that, and then you have to start transitioning. You need to start preparing to move. Maybe you have your family back home. You need to move to a new country. You need to know how to go about that. So there's that transition. That is one I could say. There are a couple of challenges you encounter there. It's different for different countries and different for different people. But I can tell you, it's a process. You also have to be ready for it mentally. So there's a challenge.
Was the visa process challenging?
Yeah.
Was it smooth or tough?
For me, it wasn't. It was both. It was tough in that I needed to be in school by 22nd of January.
I see.
but I had an appointment of May 2025. Just think about that.
Ooh.
So I have an appointment of the earliest appointment,
Yeah.
May 2025, but I need to be in school by January 22nd. What do you do?
Oh, man.
What do you do?
So you ask for expedite process or
Yeah, but remember, an expedite, you have to ask for an expedite when it's 30 days to the time when
the
you're
start?
supposed to, yeah, the start, yeah.
Yeah,
So the earliest I
forgot
could
that
ask for an
distance.
expedite was 22nd December. Okay.
Oh,
But then I asked for an expedite in 22nd December, and somebody had not advised me, if you want to get an expedite, try to ask for it like almost 2 weeks to your travel, almost a week to your travel date. Don't rush to asking for it. It should be the final
wow. I
result.
didn't know that. Okay.
The initial plan is to try and look for an early appointment by yourself before you ask for an expedite.
I
So
see.
you need to
Yeah,
probably
first you
try and
record
refresh.
on. Yeah.
So try to refresh the system to see whether you can get an early appointment.
Mhm.
So if time is going and you have maybe 1 week to your travel date, which for me was around 11th
Mhm.
January, then that's the time. That 1 week
And
is
for
when
expedite
you ask for
process,
expedite, because your chances of getting it, they're kind of increased. But if you ask again too early, so mine was denied.
Was denied
Yeah, I was denied.
the
They denied
expedite or the visa?
the expedite.
Oh man.
So what do you do?
Wow.
What do you do?
I know that's so.
So I sent my
Yeah.
expedite on 22nd. By 27th, I got a denial letter, denial email,
Oh man.
and now that kind of crashes you. It takes you back because now you need to start figuring out what happens in this case. And I'm in communication with the university, specifically my PI, trying to talk to the embassy. It was a very tough time between 28th and around 9th of January, because I'm trying to talk to them to give me an expedite. But it wasn't possible.
It didn't happen. Yeah.
It didn't happen until I now had to talk to the school and tell them I cannot get an expedite. I have to wait until May to go for the interview. So I had to wait until May. That's why I came in May.
So you came late.
Yeah, I came late.
After class started, so you started in between.
Yeah, so
the
I
semester.
the
So
thing
did you
is-
defer your admission time?
Yeah, you defer.
Oh, yeah.
You change your admission. So I had to change my admission to summer.
Summertime.
Yeah, so that's why I started the program in summer. But originally I was supposed to start in spring.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
So that
Okay.
is but I mean, for sure that is a major challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you go through all that, it teaches you something, you know.
Yeah.
And going through it and coming out of it and being patient.
Gives them
in that process.
mental strength and
I mean, you sometimes
adaptability
yeah,
and
it
you know.
doesn't. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. But some of these questions that we asked, whether you can work under pressure, is some of these things, because there are a lot of disappointments that come through sometimes. But if you're not mentally stable, they can put you down and put you into depression. Because, for example, in January, I think I was just seeing an opportunity disappear. So just imagine having an offer letter.
Yeah.
It's ready, it's ripe, but you cannot go.
You cannot go because you don't have visa.
Yeah, you don't have visa.
What
And
can you do?
the institution can decide, okay, now that you're not coming, we're going to give it to someone else.
Wow.
Will you blame them for anything?
Thanks, Nebraska, for waiting.
Yeah, they were good. They were
Yeah.
nice to me. That's one thing I always thank my team for. I mean, the team and my PI, to be specific, because I mean we used to talk with him or exchange a couple of emails and tell him what's happening. And the other bad thing about January is because the embassy is closed, I think, up to.
Oh yeah, it's holiday time.
You guys are going for holidays, so guys are not in the office.
It's a very
So
lean.
that's why, and there's a very small team that opens and works in the embassy around that time. So that's why even getting an expedite is not feasible.
I understand it.
Yeah. So I think that's why. So I tried to explain to them my situation, and they kind of understood and they waited for me, which was so. I mean, I don't know which is the best word to describe this, but I think that was so good of them.
Yeah.
For the university to wait and have me have my opportunity by summer. Yeah.
That's cool.
So that was a challenge. The other challenge was, of course, now coming in here, you land in Nebraska. The good thing is that sometimes, like right now, we have a big international community. So you might find you have someone who's from your country, someone who's a friend, someone who can host you and take care of you and try to show you around. But you can find yourself in a position where you don't have this kind
You
of
don't know when you arrive.
So I think that is another challenge.
A lot of things are new.
The good thing is that the university tries also to support you fully.
Yeah.
They will advise you on how to go about these things. But for sure, if you have somebody who maybe is from your country or is a friend, it's a better option
Yeah.
because he or they maybe they are students like you, so they will tell you how to go about some things. So for me, I had someone like that I knew.
Oh, you did, yeah.
I
That's
had
very
a
good.
friend of ours. I was introduced to him
That's good.
by one of the ladies that come to.
Is a Kenyan or?
Yeah, he's a Kenyan. His name is
Okay.
David.
Oh, David.
So, yeah, David, yeah.
We know him.
Yeah, so I knew. I didn't know
Thank
him.
you, David.
I didn't know him before I came here.
Ah, you didn't
I
know?
didn't know him before I
Wow.
came here. But I was introduced to him by a colleague of ours from
Ah.
Kefis. Her name is Florence. And
Nice.
so by the time I came in here, I came and I knew David is gonna show me around, and he extended even not only to showing me around but also to hosting me for some time, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
so that gives you that peace of mind that now
There's
you can settle,
brotherhood and hospitality. Cool.
you need to galley together.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can enjoy
Nice.
tea and coffee.
Oh, nice.
It was fantastic. But I think it can also be challenging if you don't, like for example, his case, he didn't have someone that he knew.
Yeah.
When he came in, so
Yeah.
it was slightly challenging for him. But we all have
So
different
knowing
experiences.
people,
Yeah, it's good to have a good
very important.
Yeah.
Use the technology, connect with people before you travel. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, for
Go
sure.
ahead. Yeah.
So I don't think there's been any other challenge. Maybe the weather or something else. Sometimes
Whether winter time.
we are used to tropics and
Yeah.
warm weather, not so unpredictable.
Mhm.
But some of coming to Nebraska, the winter,
Yeah.
the blizzards.
Yeah.
I found it interesting.
It's good you are driving. Me, because I was not driving.
Yeah.
So did you buy your car immediately after coming here? How long it
No,
took you?
I mean, I bought my car just the other day.
So you take the bus to go to
The
groceries
bus,
or David is there maybe.
Friends.
Friends,
Goes back
yeah.
again to friends because we have a good student community.
Mhm.
So if I need to go for groceries, if I want to, we have some Kenyan friends.
Oh yeah.
So
Nice.
they were open to if you need to go for something, just
Yeah,
call me, I'll
just
drop
go
you.
and
If you want to pick something, I'll drop you.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
that's how my time was.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the challenges. But to be sure, those are challenges that you can go through. You
Yeah,
just need to
come
kind
on,
of be
so,
prepared and try to know who to talk to and how to go around it. Those are the challenges. But now think about the good things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Was that the other question you asked?
Yeah, that's like 3 good things, 4, 5, whatever. And also the challenges so that people have a balanced expectation.
Okay. The
You
good
know,
thing.
yeah.
Let me try to.
You already said like your team,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
your friends and
Yeah.
all these
Yeah,
things.
there's one extra thing that I want to mention here. I try to look at the level of education that we are in right now.
Mhm.
So I think for anybody coming for a master's program, for PhD program, and maybe you have some previous experience,
Yeah.
or maybe you're already an adult,
Mhm.
so you'd want to be in an environment where you're being taught on how to apply whatever you're learning.
Mhm.
So it's not like I think I'm just trying to compare something here. There's an education system where it's so much about dictation and so much of notes taking and cramming stuff. There's an education system where it's more of real life application. How can you present yourself and convince people? Think about that. How can you how ready and how prepared are you for the real world? So I think one of the interesting things that I found with, for example, the classes that we have here, and the way the classes are set, is that we have these interesting discussions, open-ended discussions, where however much it's a class, it's a platform for you to improve your confidence, to share your ideas, to teach others, remember, and also to hear other people's views. So it's an exchange.
Yeah.
So it's not a lecturing system. Because now with the lecturing system, I think it's a different system.
Yeah, it's one way.
That works, for example. Yeah, one way. That works for undergrad,
Yeah.
and maybe high school. But when you come to this level that we are in, you want a situation where you can ask questions, you can hypothesize something, you can critique something, so that it is not one-way communication. I think that setting up classes for that, especially for graduate level, I think that is fantastic. And that is one of the things I think, apart from the many other good things, I think that is something that I found good for me. And because I think I try to my best to believe that the information that we have has to be shared,
Yeah.
and it has to be applied at the end of the day. But you see, sharing of that information and digesting that information to a way that it can be shared, because I'm a scientist, right?
Yeah.
So I will understand so much about the physics, the biology, and the chemistry. around it. But this information is supposed to be taken by a farmer.
Mm.
So how do you digest this information and put it in a way that a farmer can understand?
Yeah.
That's a totally different scenario. That's why you find that if I'm a very good scientist, I can do stuff in the lab, but I don't have a way of synthesizing this knowledge
In a
and,
way
and
that
communicate it to the
farmers
farmer
understand,
to understand it. Then it becomes there's a barrier, there's a
Mhm.
physical barrier there. But the minute the classes are set in a way that you're being trained to handle scenarios, communicate with these farmers, criticize, be open to criticism as well. Because somebody will ask you a question and be like, okay. They make you think, you become a critical
Mhm.
thinker. And that way they are teaching you to how to harness your skills around information sharing, information, digesting, and you can be able to relay that information to whichever audience. Because if I'm in a science, a room filled with science guys,
Mhm.
let's talk the science. If I'm in a room filled with business people and I'm pitching an idea, let's talk the business. So now the terms are going to change. If I'm in a room where it's only farmers, the science has to change.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm still the same person,
Yeah.
So I think that is one thing that I think is interesting for me in any education system at graduate level.
Very good. So, yeah, briefly saying, it's a team of like instructors and students.
Yeah.
Someone from your country or an international student, and then the quality of education and the teaching method
Sure.
becomes something like that. Now, let's come back to your passion, your vision when you came, and how this led to your future. Where do you go from now, and where is Nebraska taking you in relation to career? Like,
Okay.
what's your ambition? Where do you want to grow, or how do you want to plan to utilize all these experiences and skills
So
to meet your professional ambitions?
yeah, so this year in October I'll be turning 30.
Oh yeah. Whew.
Yeah, so
Cool.
and we always have this fear of going to that flow. We call it
Uh-huh.
that flow. So you need to have made, there are critical things you need to have achieved before you get to your 30.
Uh-huh.
So I think for me being in this education system, trying to work on my masters and hoping that of course I'll graduate by next year,
Mhm.
and being now open to a different environment and comparing to what the exposure that I've already had.
Yeah.
I think I'm still in that preparation stage where my goal is just to feed everything that I do into some of the passions that I have. And my passions are around agriculture for sure.
Mhm.
However much you want to call it, people call it agribusiness, others call it scientific agriculture, applied methodology. All that is information that is meant to feed into food security and food safety. You see? Food security, food safety. We want to be assured that 30 years from now we will have food, good food, safe food
Quality.
for our
Yeah.
continent and for the over 8 billion of people, 8 billion or 10 billion people who will be in this earth that time. So I think my passions are around there. And so what I'm currently doing is trying to package myself to feed into those passions. So one of the things is I think this master's program is going to be very important. So right now I'm working on soybeans.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I work on
Nice.
soybean. So and what I'm trying to do is just I work in a fungal ecology lab or facility, and what we're doing is we're trying to look at some of the pathogens that affect soybean. And the questions around what is the effective management strategies that can be used, and do we have some alternative management strategies? Because there's already what farmers are currently using. So we want to see, are they still effective? And if they're effective, which ones are not? So if we have some that are not effective, what can we advise? Can we have some alternative management strategies? So nowadays people are talking so much about biocontrol agents. We have some organic compounds that can be used to replace some of the fungicides. Because you see, with chemical application, for the longest time we have had issues to do with how safe are these chemicals. So when you talk about food safety, think about that. So in KEFIS, one of the facilities that we had a quality assurance facility. It was called an analytical chemistry lab.
I see.
And the work that we did was all about food safety. So when it comes to pesticide residues, we used to test that. When it comes to fertilizers and water, they need to test the quality of that. And also, so thinking about these chemicals that we are using in our farms, we would want to also find alternative management strategies. That's why we have, for example, an integrated pest management system that recommends that you need to exhaust all the other methods to try and manage your crop or pathogens around your crops before you move into using fungicides. And even when you use fungicides or chemicals, you need to make sure you don't overuse them because you again risk yourself. You put yourself in the risk of having issues to do with some of these chemicals. So I'm in that space, and I'm passionate about making sure that we have enough food and safe food. Okay, and there's a lot that you can do in that space to be sure.
So it's PhD or job.
So
After you finish, just if you have to choose one, which way would you go? PhD or employment?
It's a tricky question, you know.
You have been given both options.
People will go for the money, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to know, like,
okay, PhD program, 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah,
I think that is something I can go for.
Mhm.
If it's beyond 4 years, it's a little bit tricky. I would love to do my PhD within at least,
Very
if
good.
it's possible, 3 years. I have a couple of friends who have done it within 3 years.
So Nebraska or somewhere else?
I'm open.
Open to.
Let's say I'm open. It
Okay.
just depends on
That's good.
the kind of program. So because the other thing I didn't mention is that most of what we do right now it's also moving into a space around information technology.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of computer information that is going around that most people are now getting whatever data that they get. They feed it into machine learning and deep learning.
Mhm.
So there's another space to explore there for sure. So if I get a PhD program that is trying to take me to that direction, it is so tempting for me.
Are you already looking for a PhD? I know someone
still
might watch this discussion and then they might check your LinkedIn and the like.
Yeah.
So did you already start applying?
It's too early because I'm supposed to graduate next year.
So you're waiting.
I don't want to say it's too early, but I don't want to think so much about the PhD
So
before
first
I'm
finish
done with
this.
the master's. So
And
that's
then
why I'm so concerned about getting done with
finish
the
the
master's for
PhD,
now.
the master's.
Yeah,
and then-
once I'm done with the master's, by that time, depending on the discussion we'll have with my current boss and the department, and also some of the interests that I will have by then,
Yeah.
or let's say by end of this year, that would be a good time to know which program
Which
am I
way
going
you
to do. Am I going to? But I'm telling you for sure, we need a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We need knowledge. You can never get enough. So, and a PhD program for sure gives you that
Yeah,
opportunity
it gives you the
to
time
get more knowledge,
really go deep.
yeah, to explore more, to get connected more. So that is something that you always want to do, especially when you're still young. You don't want to go back to a program when you are 50 years old.
I surely recommend that. You can see me. I came after a lot of work, and then it really challenged me. I really encourage people to go fast because you have a lot of family responsibilities and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, and a final question. Now come back to our African community, right? Kenyans or Nigerians or Ethiopians and the diaspora and the like. Well, as you know, I work on Yes Ethiopia and what they call it Yes Africa or Yes International and the like. What do you recommend? How can we do better? How can we become better connected, both in the diaspora here in the US, also back in Africa, so that we, utilize our best potential and be there for our farmers and families, brothers and sisters. I see there is a big potential, but we are not really as such engaging. And so this is one example where a lot of Ethiopian friends are going to attend to this discussion. They get some English, language by itself is a challenge for us. So we can teach in different ways. We can share inspirations, and we also can teach back home virtually, support grad students. Everybody might not get the chance to come to US. Nowadays, technology made it easier. You can teach and advise and engage in joint research, publishing, or businesses. What do you recommend? What should we do in that area?
A couple of things, and I'm trying to understand your question because I think it's a very important question because at the end of the day, we are Africans and Africa is our business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Wherever we carry this flag, wherever we're going to go, we are Africans.
and Africa
Of course, we also have Africans in the US. Nowadays, people are everywhere.
Yeah.
How can we just make better
so
impact?
my thinking is the world has become a small global village for sure. That's why, for example, we're in the US and we're able to communicate with people back home
Yeah.
and even impact them positively.
Mhm.
So even I'm one person who believes in the small things that we do.
Mhm.
So it is like what we call a micro ambition
Mhm.
that you can exponentially, make it a major ambition.
Connect, yeah.
So even impacting a single person, I think it's
Mhm.
important. So us coming together and trying to look at the challenges that we share as Africans, as Kenyans, as Ethiopians, as
Mhm.
Nigerians, as South Africans, and then try to look at that at a global way. That my challenges are not only within us.
Mm.
I can get my options, sorry, my solutions are not only within Kenya. My solutions are not only within Ethiopia.
Mhm.
I can get my solutions from a Kenyan, I
Everywhere,
can get
yeah.
my solutions from an American, from a guy from UK or something like that. And that way, we put ourselves in a position where we are open to learning from some of these developed countries for sure, and also getting that opportunity to interact with them and get to know what works for you, what worked for you. Of course, our cultures are slightly different,
Mhm.
and that would mean that there are some things that might not really resonate with us,
Mhm.
maybe in a Kenyan setup, in an Ethiopian setup. But at the end of the day, I think we're all human. We're all human beings, right? It's about humanity and taking care of humanity.
Yeah.
It's about who needs food and how much more food can we create and give them. Who needs security and how much security can we create for them. Who needs peace of mind, because I think that is also very critical. Who needs open to these opportunities, for example, education in good schools. Who needs all that? It is still our brothers and sisters. So I think for sure, what is critical for us is to put ourselves in a position where we are able to collaborate, try to be very intentional about impacting our societies, starting from a single person. It doesn't have to be 10 people or 50 people at a go, even that one single person. For example, the opportunity you and I have to be here, it can boomerang on so many other people with time, and it keeps on growing with time, depending on how intentional are we about making it count. So when one of us gets an opportunity, let's celebrate them. Let's try to be friends with them. Let's make sure we send them as our ambassadors. And then, for them, they need to know that when they come here, they're representing a community. There are people looking up on them.
Yeah.
There's there are people learning a lot from you in one way or the other. And you need to do your best to make sure that you share what you know, and you also try to represent their agenda. So I think that is something that we have to intentionally do, because we have resources, we have some of great minds, we have everything we need. But in one way or the other, most of our countries are still small countries. GDP is still, we're still growing. We are developing countries, so there's still work to be done for sure. But this work cannot be done as an individual. There has to be collaborative effort. We have to collaborate with everybody in the world. So that's why I'm always, I told you, one of the things that I really enjoyed and I really like by coming to the US is that I meet people with a different mindset.
Yeah.
And somebody will tell you, when you try to explain to them about, how it's difficult to make money back in Kenya until maybe you're 20 years, 21 years. And then they will tell you here in the US, by the time you're 13 years, you can already be making a lot of money compared to even someone who is back in the US working in an institution or somebody, an employed person who is maybe 30 or 40 years old. So we do have that variation. But for us, because we are at that level right now, it's up to us to learn what are these guys doing that is putting them in this position? How can we implement it back home? So it has to start as small as what we can do at individual level and try to grow it into and we have to give it time for sure. So patience also comes in. I think sometimes we have this tendency of running out of patience and we give up in the middle and we don't want to continue, and it becomes it doesn't even count whether you started, because if you start something and you close it in the middle, nobody will ever count that you started this. It's a lost opportunity, right? But if you can start something, be patient, make sure it works, keep pushing, don't give up. That's it. But we need to look ourselves as Africans who are interested in making a change and making sure that our countries, they continue to have they continue to have they continue to be well represented in the globe, because that's it. Everybody's trying to get a piece of the cake, right? So it is enough for everybody. We just need to share it out. Loving your brother, sharing what you have is also quite important, I think. I mean, we normally say that you have to love your brother as you love yourself, which most of
Yeah.
us don't do, you know. Which most of us
Yeah.
don't do. But the
I was
principle-
thinking also, sorry for interrupting. I was
Yeah, that's
also
fine.
thinking about, let's say, an association,
Yeah.
strong community of, let's say, African
Mhm.
scholars.
Yeah.
And we usually have like a lot of these small groups here and there.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're just disconnected.
Yeah.
Everybody looking into
Mhm.
their own
Yeah. So,
kind of small rooms, and then you see a lot of people, but we don't have a kind of common platform.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking of this can be a very good starting point for us to start thinking. First, build a strong connection between Kenyans, among Kenyan, then also think between countries, and then all of us together.
Yeah.
That would put us in a better place to work with global communities, the diaspora, people like Laban and all these
Yeah, sure.
big people.
You know, one thing is not easy to bring people together, especially people with different ideologies.
Mhm.
But that's what I'm saying. I think we need to people eventually, and I think we are moving there, where people are intentional about making change and coming together and appreciating that we need each other.
Yeah.
It's not about you can try to do everything as Ethiopians,
Mm.
but the world is bigger than you.
Yeah,
and I.
exactly.
So the more we have that joint effort, collaborative effort, the more it is good for everybody.
Maybe we make it Yes Africa.
Yes, Africa is Ethiopia. It has to
Yeah.
be something global at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're close enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
We are done.
So it has to be a global agenda. And now that
Exactly.
we have people everywhere, let's just try and whatever we learn out there, let's make sure it flows back to where we came from in one way or the other.
Yeah, so as a closing, say something in Swahili to your Kenyan brothers and sisters. Maybe the only, few Kenyans might end up watching this
Yeah,
discussion.
sure.
And I would say in Amharic also. And please go ahead and,
Jambo Wakenya wenzangu, kwa Kiswahili nilivyosema, mimi naitwa Kelvin na nashukuru sana kuwa kwa huu mtandao siku ya leo kuweza kuongelelea yale ambayo tunapitia kama Wakenya na pia kuongelelea nafasi ambayo nimepata hapa University of Nebraska Lincoln, na ningewatakia kila laheri kwa kila jambo unalofanya kama Mkenya. Muendelee kutia bidii, kutia juhudi, muendelee kushikana. Ushikamano ndio hivyo ndivyo tunaweza kujenga taifa letu. Kwa hivyo ni mzuri watu washikane, waendelee kutia bidii, waendelee kushughulikia jirani yako na kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeweza kusaidiana kama ndugu na majamaa na pia kama watu ambao wanapenda nchi yao. So ni vizuri pia tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba tunapenda nchi yetu na tunaweza kufanya jambo lolote kuhakikisha kwamba nchi yetu imeendelea mbele. Kwa hivyo nashukuru pia kila mtu ambaye amenishikilia katika safari yangu, kwa sababu safari yangu ilikuwa fupi, lakini